I always say that the word Arab Spring is not accurate. I prefer to talk about Arab volcanoes. And you know that when you have a volcanoes, you know that the volcanoes will erupt, but you don't know when.
Moncef Marzouki served as Tunisia's first democratically elected president after the Arab Spring. He's a longtime human rights activist who's been a vocal critic of President Kais Said's moves to consolidate power. He's faced charges of incitement to overthrow the government and has been sentenced to 8 years in prison in absentia. Marzouki has spoken out against what he sees as the reversal of Tunisia's democratic gains. Moncef Marzouki takes center stage to share with us his views for the future of Tunisia and the region. Dr. Moncef Marzouki, former president of Tunisia, thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for your invitation.
So many people around the world see you as a politician, the former president of Tunisia, the first president after the revolution, an activist, an intellectual. You also studied medicine in France, so you're a qualified physician. How do you see yourself?
As a physician, merely as a physician, because I remember very well, I come from a poor family in the southern part of Tunisia. The southern part of Tunisia is the poorest part of the country. And one of my sisters, died by giving birth, because we didn't have a physician in our village. So at the time, my decision was made. I will be a physician because I don't want more women, to die giving birth to the child. And this was probably the most important thing in my life. My main field was social medicine. In fact, I began to be a physician involved in fighting diseases among the poorest part of the population. And then I came to the human rights field, and then from the human rights field to politician. But I feel myself mainly as a physician.
Okay, and so that was your trajectory.
Yes, and I kept, in fact, dealing with problems as a physician. I have to make a diagnosis, I have to seek a treatment, and then I have to try to do this treatment. This is the way I'm doing politics.
Is that the way that you felt you dealt with the country then,
yes,
when you were a politician?
Exactly,
okay.
Exactly.
Well, let's look at the politics a little bit. You grew up in a politicized house, didn't you?
Yes.
Your father went to Morocco.
Yeah.
He was in exile in Morocco due to political reasons.
Yeah.
I also understand that you yourself started a political faction when you were 13 years old as a child, which you can tell us about.
Yes.
So growing up, did you ever think that you would be president of the country, and did you want to be president?
No, not at all. Because my father used to tell me, look, politics is extremely dangerous. Be a good physician and that will be okay for the country. And in fact, I didn't want to be a politician, because when I came back from France to Tunisia, as I told you, I began to work in the social medicine field, and I just wanted, to improve the health of the population. But because of political factors, I saw that because we have a dictatorship, nothing could be done. So and I saw also a lot of people, subject to torture. This was also very important for me. Torture is the most awful thing that. So I began to fight against all this silly and corrupt and brutal dictatorship we have in Tunisia. And this is why, and I became a politician. But I don't feel myself as a politician. I feel a man fighting for some values. Because, the word politician is, when you talk about politicians, people would say, hey, this guy is trying to, just to improve his own situation, by having more power, more wealth, etc. This has never have been my objective.
You also traveled to India, and there you studied Gandhi's nonviolent resistance.
Yeah.
You went to South Africa. You studied the transition from apartheid.
Yeah.
Were you able to put anything you learned in these two countries, from these two movements, into practice in Tunisia?
Oh, yes, of course. My master is Mandela. I have had the great honor to meet him in 1990, before he became president. And then I also extremely admiring Gandhi, because Gandhi, the lesson from Gandhi is to be strong is not to be violent. Because in the Arab world, you cannot be considered as a strong man without being violent. And even now, for the moment, the Arabs would admire somebody because he's strong, and strong means to be violent. And this is why, when I was president, I was considered by a lot of people as a weak president because I didn't exert any repression against my enemy, etc. I said, no, we have to deal with, even with enemy, you have to deal with them in the framework of the law.
If we fast forward, Dr. Marzouki, to most recent times, in 2022, you were sentenced in Tunisia to 4 years in prison in absentia. Authorities describe you as, quote unquote, assaulting the security of the state. And earlier this year, you received another 8-year sentence, again in absentia, for remarks which authorities claim are incitement. First, let me get your reaction to this latest sentencing, 8 years in absentia.
It's, you cannot understand those sentences without understanding the fact that the Arab Spring has failed, everywhere, even in Tunisia, because now what was happening after the revolution, now we have the counter-revolution, and this man, this president, is part of this counter-revolution. And of course, they hate everything related to the revolution, and they hated me personally. So after the coup in 2021, when he decided, to throw the constitution and to set up a new dictatorship, of course, I said it's not acceptable. I must tell you that I voted for this man. In 2019, I voted for this man because I thought he was a lawyer. He was professor of constitutional law. I think it was, yes, constitutional law. So I thought this guy would probably protect this constitution because we were very proud of our constitution. And I thought that, okay, he will be probably not so bad president. But when he decided, when he made the coup, and Tunisia became a real dictatorship, I said, no, this is a coup, and we have to do everything against this man.
What do you mean everything against this? Because what you're accused of doing, some say you're accused of calling for the overthrow of the government.
Yes, I said.
Is that what you're calling for?
No, of course, I said this is a illegal government. This is a illegal coup. This man, blocked the parliament. Jailed a lot of members of parliament. It was really, it was a coup, and I was saying that this is not a legal government, so we have to overthrow this government, but peacefully. I called for the demonstration, for the resistance of the people, etc. So this is why they have decided that I became very dangerous, and they have decided, to sentence me. But I'm very, very, I would say, very sad to see that after, Tunisia was a very good country for the promoting and setting a new, real democracy. Everything was, we have all the good factors to be democratic states. I mean, middle class, educated class, we're near Europe, etc., etc. So the fact that even in Tunisia, we didn't succeed, to have this democratic states, very, very painful for me, because I spent all my life fighting for this.
So just for clarity, and back to what you're calling for, you call for the overthrow of the government peacefully. Are you calling for a return to the Constitution of 2014?
Yes, of course.
Under which?
Yes, of
was during your time?
Yes, of course. And even now, my objective is Tunisia, to come back to the Constitution of 2014, because this Constitution in 2014 was probably the best Constitution in the Arab world, and the first Constitution that were democratically discussed and adopted by the people. This is why Tunisia wouldn't return to democracy without returning to this Constitution.
And just to give some context to viewers, that's when you were, of course, president, and you were in an alliance with the Ennahda party in Tunis. So that's the constitution that you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, my position with Ennahda is, there's a lot of misunderstanding about this alliance. In fact, I was not aligned with Ennahda, or, I'm a secularist. I'm not an Islamist. I'm a secularist. I came from the left side of the spectrum. But my position was all the time to say, look, first, I reacted to the oppression of the Islamists in the 90s as a human rights activist. I said we have to, we have to refuse, as secularists coming from the left, we have to refuse any attempt to the dignity or to the human rights of Islamists. This is the first part. The second part, as a Democrat, I always said, look, if the Islamists won election peacefully, democratically, etc., they have the right to govern the country. And then if they succeed, okay, they will succeed for the whole country. But if they fail, they will lose election. Then we can come back to the.
But as a secular, then how do you see the role of religion in politics? Do you think that they should be separate, religion and state?
Of course. This is the main difference with the Islamists. I always said, no, religion is, as we say, religion is for the whole country, but democracy is the political system. We don't have to mix them. Politics is politics and religion. This is the main difference with
So there is no role for political Islam, in your opinion?
I have had a lot of discussion, when we are writing down the constitution about this, the word Sharia, I opposed that we used to have the word Sharia in the constitution, and we succeeded. In Tunisia, we didn't have the word Sharia. So it's quite different to see, look, if the Islamists won the election democratically, they have the right to govern it. This was my difference with our secularists. Say, look, we have to accept the game. We cannot go to the game saying, I will accept the game only if I win. No, you can lose and you have to accept it. And they would tell me, look, if they come to power, the Islamists, they will stick to it and they will impose religious, etc. They say, no, we will be heard as a position, and there will be a new election. If there is no new election, then we can go on resistance. But for the first time, we have to accept to accept the rules of the game. Otherwise, it will mock democracy. And this is what we used to have under the dictatorship, a mock democracy.
Right. Dr. Marzouki, we talked about your sentencing in absentia in 2024 and 2022, but this is not the first time that you've been charged by Tunisian authorities. You were also charged under Bourguiba's rule and under Ben Ali's rule. Yes. Why does the state go after you?
Because I have been always, sticking to my own values that Tunisia must be governed by a democratic state, and Tunisia, we must be people of citizens and not people of subjects. So this was my position under Bourguiba, under Ben Ali, under this guy, and I will stick to these values until I pass away.
The elections, of course, are scheduled for Tunisia later this year, the presidential elections. We don't know when yet, but probably sometime in the fall. Are you optimistic about the future?
No, not at all, not at all. Because look, it's sort of low. The dictators, when they are in charge, they never give up. And they never give up because for one main reason, because, they commit a lot of crime, a lot of, corruption of it. So they know that they have to stick to power, otherwise they go to jail. This is the main mechanism that makes that no dictator would ever, live with fair elections. So I don't expect this guy to leave. And Allahumma, and perhaps the deep state, if the deep state decided this guy is now becoming dangerous and inefficient, because he is dangerous for the whole country, for the state, and even for the deep state itself. So maybe the deep state would say, okay, it's enough with this guy, we will have another guy. But in any case, I don't believe that we are going to have fair elections.
You say that he's dangerous for the whole country, but Kais Saied does have some support within the country, and there's been a strong response to some of his policies, particularly the economic policies.
No, at the beginning, when he came, he was, like all populists saying, look, I'm going to get rid of corruption, etc., etc. But the situation, the last 5 years, the economic situation is worsening. And the middle class who were behind the counter-revolution, because this revolution partly came with the Nahda, etc. Now they are regretting, because under the revolution they had at least freedom of expression, freedom of association, etc. The democratic freedom. Now they have lost everything. So the middle class have lost everything, and the poorest class didn't gain anything. This is what happened, Ben Ali lost power because he lost the middle class for political reason and the poorest class for economic reason. And we have exactly the same phenomena now. So they don't expect this guy would last. And the support that he had at the beginning is now, fading.
Let's look at the Arab Spring.
Yeah.
It's more than a decade on since the Arab Spring. When you reflect on this time, I know that you've said that the Arab Spring is the easy part. What does that mean? Are you expecting another Arab Spring? And did you expect the gains that were made during this time, not only in Tunisia, but other countries around the region, to be reversed in this way?
Oh, yes, because, it's a kind of law, historical law. Then when you have a revolution, you have all the country revolution. That happened everywhere. So I wasn't surprised by the fact that we are going to have a wave of counter revolution because, look, the social the class that lose power when you have a revolution, they don't disappear. They would just wait and do everything, to sabotage the process and then come back to This is exactly what happened. Now, I'm repeating all the time that the counter revolution, did everything to sabotage the revolution. So there will be an after counter-revolution. I'm expecting a new wave of revolution. I don't know exactly when it comes. I always say that the word Arab Spring is not accurate. I prefer to talk about Arab volcanoes. And that when you have a volcanoes, that the volcanoes will erupt, but you don't know when. Politicians are like geologists. Politicians know that this society would burst, there would be explosion, but they never know when it happened. You have this total failure of the counter-revolution, economically, politically, etc., etc. And the young generation now is boiling. And
so you say the counter-revolutions failed. Did the revolutions themselves fail, in your opinion?
As I told you, the counter-revolution did everything, to sabotage the revolution. And now themselves, they are in a mess. They cannot solve any of the problems that the revolution, couldn't solve.
You've spoken out also against outside interference when it comes to Tunisia.
Yeah.
Is that still a concern for you
Yes,
today?
of course. There was a regional veto against our revolution. Unfortunately, the Western country that have supported, the democratic revolution in the Eastern Europe, they didn't support our revolution for different reasons. And now we know that dictatorship cannot be part of the solution because dictatorship is the problem everywhere. So you cannot solve any problem with this political system. This political system must be removed, and I'm sure it will be removed.
Tunisia, Dr. Marzouki, has always been in lockstep. The parliament, the people, and the presidency have always been in lockstep when it comes to the Palestinian cause.
Yeah.
Huge supporters of Palestine as well as the Palestinian cause. Was there ever a time under your watch when you were president that Tunisia was pressured from outside forces to normalize relations with Israel?
Oh, yes. But of course, I remember when I was president, I invited both Abu Walid and Abu Abd, the leaders of Hamas. They came for the first time in the Palace of Carthage, and I was warned by a lot of my friends saying, look, you have made the error of your life because nobody would pardon you the fact that you have received those terrorists. I said, no, there are not terrorists. They are fighting for freedom, and I'm standing with them, and I would accept any retaliation from a lot of people, And yes, at that time, it was extremely dangerous, to receive because we are under the surveillance of a lot of different countries, etc. Probably Tunisia would be the last country, to recognize Israel. Probably because any president who would going to normalize, he will have the street against him, and which is not the same situation in other countries.
Right. When you look at the situation right now in Gaza, what's happening with the war, do you think that Palestinians are closer to achieving freedom?
Of course, I hope so, but I'm afraid that because of what's happening in Israel, because of the fact that now the right wing is having the lead, that I'm afraid that the war will be going on and on and on. I'm very pessimistic in the midterm, but at the middle and long term, I think the Palestinian people will prevail. In fact, I always like to call the Palestinian people the people that you cannot defeat. The Palestinian people is fighting for more 1 century. Probably is the last people under colonialism regime, And now I am very happy because I see that there is a shift in the public opinion in the West, you know, more comprehensive, more mainly within the new generation, you know, the generation. So I hope that the support from the world and the support from the new generation, Arab generation, American generation, etc., would help this the Palestinian to achieve their goals.
My final question to you, Dr. Marzouki, how does it feel to be in exile? I mean, you're a former president who's dedicated his life to his country.
I feel very sad because I'm afraid that I'm going to have the same fate of my father, because my father died in exile in Morocco. So I said, what's happening? I'm doing exactly the same thing. I'm going to finish my life in exile, maybe buried in France. But, you know, I'm always saying to myself, look, it may be foolish or stupid to try to change the world, but it's criminal not to try. So my job is to try, trying, etc. Because otherwise it would be criminal not to try.
Dr. Marzouki, thank you so much. Pleasure to speak to you. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.